So speaking of which, I'm going to just show an example right now of 529. This is assuming $15,000 every year for 15 years, 7% with no fees. So that means zero money coming out of this policy. This is a true 7% growth. This is from an Excel sheet, 15% times 7. That's what it is, add it together, and then you keep totaling up. So you see that 7% every year, the account will grow. And then you'll get, in this case, for the 4 years after year 15. So this would be, when the child's going to college, because we're going to have this be, on a 3-year-old. So they've had a couple years already. You're getting 65,000, and you're going to have, 188,000 left in cash value within this policy for future needs. Don't have to worry about memorizing these numbers. All the important things we'll come back to later. But I just want to point out that this is in its most simplest and raw form, just straight accumulation on 15,000 at 7%. And even when it's taken out that 65,000, it's still getting 7% on that difference to continue to grow and offset the deductions from the account. Now we're going to compare that to an IUL. So this one is taken from one of the many carriers that we have. I kind of took the numbers from the illustration and put them into a spreadsheet, because there's lots of columns, as you know, in those detailed summaries of an IUL to kind of focus on the ones that we're looking at. And even though this is a generic agnostic representation, we do work with a lot of the major carriers, F&G, Corebridge, Securian, Prudential, just to name a few. So your favorite IUL carrier would have something that would fit this. So we're going to have that same $15,000 a year premium going in, that same $65,000 coming out for the 4 years to pay for college. And you'll note that the surrender value after that is 112. So when we look at these two in comparison, the value when your last contribution went in, so this is right before you start taking out for your college expenses, you're going to have more in the 529 plan, as you would, because you're taking that greater risk to expect that greater return. And then you're also going to have a higher value after you're done with your withdrawals. So after you pay for the 4 years of education, you are going to have additional funds and additional value still within the policy, and that 529 is going to have a greater value at this point in time. But as I said before, we're going to talk about some real world examples. Child goes to college for 4 years. Well, now that you've paid for the children's education, what are you going to use that 529 plan for? Well, you could use that as income. So I fast forwarded a couple of years. So they start taking income at age 66, the retirement age. They're going to be taking out $33,000 and some change in a distribution. But because this is not an educational expense, they're going to be hit with both taxes and penalties. So they have a 10% penalty for a non-qualified withdrawal. And since they're in retirement years, I'm just showing a flat 15% income bracket that would vary based on the client and what other income they receive in those years. But assuming that 15% plus that 10%, they have 25% in taxes and penalties off of that next distribution. You're still getting 7% growth, and that account value is still holding up a little bit, but you'll see that in this illustration example, you're only getting 11 years of that income before the account kind of bottoms out and goes negative. Now, when we compare that to an IUL, you're going to have that same death benefit protection on top. The surrender value is different, so it's 211 versus previous 283. So once again, the account value in the IUL is higher for the cash value if you're looking at just that number on the 529 than the IUL. But the IUL is able to give you that same 33,000 and some change distribution. This is just standard 20 years max distribution for starting at age 66. And you see that even though it has lower cash value, this policy can support all 20 years of surrenders. And then I would also note that since this is a tax-free distribution from the policy due to it being a loan, you are getting in pocket that mailbox money of the full $33,000 without having to worry about having taxes taken out on top. And the reason for that, when you say, well, why is it that a 529 having more cash value is having lesser returns? And it's the fact that when you take money out of a 529, just like any other investment backed vehicle, you're taking the money out. That money no longer earns you any growth. So every dollar you take out is a dollar that's not providing growth. Since these are policy loans on the IUL, you'll notice that the account value, the total value of the account, not what you have available for cash, continues to grow. And that's what you're going to be getting growth on, is that total account value, which is why an IUL and other cash-based insurance products are able to perform better, even though a dollar for dollar, they have a lesser cash value number. So that's just something to understand, that when you're talking to, parents and clients for this, and they see, well, this 529, it has, a ton more money in it when, based off of the numbers that I'm looking at. Yes, but does it retain that value when you need to use it later?